Chapter 5. Just be defined by your creator. And this is such a significant chapter. Well, it's very significant to me. Identity is one of those things that when you get it right, it's like, I don't know, wind in your sails and life to your heart. But when you get it wrong and you are basing your identity off the way you feel, what other people say about you, or like fears or worries, whatever, man, it just like deflates you. And so what a great chapter for me to just go back to and really to depend on the Lord on is our identity. And I believe, I know some men will be watching this and whoever else, but as a woman, I can speak from a woman's perspective and just know, like, I took the lid off of the banana bread and now I'm eating the banana bread. So this is not one of those movies that you watch on TV where, like they're eating, but they aren't really eating, or like they're drinking. I really have tea. You can't see, but I really have tea in here. I'm really drinking tea out of this cup. Anyways, back to identity. So speaking as a woman, I believe God has great things in store for us as women. And I believe that it all starts honestly with our relationship with Him, which we talked about the last chapter, and then our identity. We have got to get this thing right. We cannot cut corners on our identity and who God has called us to be. Listen, we are all different, but I believe that we are created to complement each other and to help each other in our journeys, in our race, in our walk with God. We are not meant to try and copy and paste and be just like someone else, but God has created you with a unique identity that no one else in this world will have. So stop looking to this person and that person for your identity and start seeking the one who created you for the specific purpose He has in mind for you. And then when He tells you what that purpose is for this season, don't say, God, I'm going to do it, and then turn around and go do your own thing because you think it'd be better to be someone else. No, that is not what God is asking us to do. God is wanting to reveal to you in this season who He has created you to be, and then He is expecting you to respond to Him based on that revelation of who He's created you to be. So He could tell you 150 times, you are beautiful, you are loved, and I have called you to blank, blank, blank in this season. But if we don't choose to obey those things, don't be surprised when you feel unfulfilled or worried or wondering about things and you just really aren't sure, God, is this really you? No, like God has revealed to you who you are, and I believe deep down in your heart, many of you know who God has called and created you to be during this season right now. But you just have to have enough courage to start acting on those things and silence all other voices around you. So I start this chapter off and I talk about the ugly duckling. In fact, I almost quote the whole story for you. Many of us know it. Many of us grew up listening to the story or have heard the story. But basically, when the ugly duckling actually turns into a swan in the end, because he had spent his whole life thus far as an ugly duckling, and he had heard taunts and discouragements from the things around him, even though he had turned into a swan, he still thought he was an ugly duckling. And for some of you, for me, I know specifically for me, but for some of you, this is a divine relation. Or divine relation. I could re-record this, but I'm not gonna. A divine revelation that you are not an ugly duckling anymore. You aren't. You are a beautiful swan. So whoever is telling you that you are an ugly duckling, I need you to silence those voices. God is saying, no, don't listen to that anymore. Here's who you are. You are a daughter that is chosen and loved by me. You were created before time even began. In your Psalm 139 talks about, I formed you before you were even in existence. Even in your mother's womb, I formed you. Hey, God has an amazing identity just uniquely for you. So every other person who is telling you otherwise, that goes against what God says for you, when God says you're a beautiful swan, let me tell you, you are a beautiful swan. And it wasn't until this ugly duckling actually saw for himself his reflection in that pond did he fully realize that he wasn't an ugly duckling anymore. He had turned into a beautiful, beautiful swan. And I want you to know that God is doing the same for you. He's doing the same for you. No longer are we ugly ducklings anymore, but God is forming and transforming us into something unique. And to me, that reflection that he saw, that was like looking at yourself through the Word of God. Looking at yourself through the Word of God. Do that today. I mean, you may have had struggles, you may have had setbacks, you may have one time in your life before, you may have really been an ugly duckling. I know there have been seasons in my life where I'm like, I was really ugly in that season. God, you need to transform me into something else. But let me tell you, nothing is wasted in your life. And even though you might be going through an ugly season or may feel ugly, let me tell you, your identity in God says that he is transforming you into something so beautiful, and that you are deeply loved just as you are. So let's make sure our identity is in him.